Going on here? Hey, I guess I'll just hit the arrows. All right. Well, if you're not super familiar with us, my name is Jazz. I am the youth engagement manager here at CanGap, and I am a very lucky human who gets to do this type of work with you wonderful gappers throughout your year, before and after, and supporting you through this process and making sure that you have everything you need to thrive and be successful. And if you're not super familiar with our organization, I see some other faces in there and some other friends who haven't commented yet. So CanGap, the Canadian Gap Year Association, literally we exist to help introduce families and students and educators to an alternative post-secondary pathway called a gap year. And a gap year is an intentional period of time you spend away from your traditional studies that allows you to have the space to do the things that you don't get space for in a classroom, like exploring your identity and yourself and your interests and what you want to do with your career, what you want to study before you commit to 4 years plus of university. That's a long time. It's good to know what you want to do. And we help you understand the value of getting hands-on experience and building employable skills, building your resume, building community. Literally, the impacts and the value is priceless. And just like, some of the things that we don't really think about it in high school, right? We're like, especially with financial literacy, we're in math class like our whole life, but we don't really talk about some of the ways that like all those numbers need to be looked at on a daily basis once we, turn 18 and suddenly you have to pay your own phone bill, or you need to deal with student loans, or you get a credit card. And our teachers never really give us that information about how to manage it all. And, it comes with a lot of like mental stress associated with it as well. So what I wanted to do to like kick us off is, first I wanted to just give like a definition to financial literacy. And then I want to kind of open the space for a little bit more of an individual assessment of like what all this looks and feels like to you. So according to Investopedia, which I love, financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills. So this includes personal financial management, budgeting, investing. Maybe you're familiar with these, maybe you are not. And when you are financially literate, you have the foundation of a relationship with money, and it's lifelong journey, and it's a lifelong journey of learning. And what I want to do is I want to dive more into that relationship piece. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to drop a link in the chat. And I know that sometimes talking about money is uncomfortable. So we're going to do a bit of an anonymous polling. Okay, so I've just dropped a link in the chat. I would like you to open that link on your computer or on your phone. It might not work so much on your phone with the Zoom app open, so hopefully you have your laptop. And I would like you to answer these questions. And so the first one is, what do you think financial literacy means? So give it yourself a moment, and I want you to drop in using the Menti app to drop in your response. Take a moment to think about it. And we have some folks that are just joining. Hello. I'll drop the link again because I don't know if it always appears right away. But we're just going to do a little bit of anonymous polling to get started. And I'm asking, we have a few questions here. And the first question is, what do you think financial literacy means? So open up the Menti app that I just dropped in the chat and just, one word, sentence, whole story, whatever you want to share. Again, this is anonymous. I can't see who's writing this. So feel free to drop it. All right, so we've got freedom, we've got independence. The ability to handle finances, yeah. So a little bit more of like a practical, hands-on skill. So we've got a little bit of feeling, we've got a little bit of practicality. In my mind, financial literacy means understanding money, how it's earned, how to save, how to spend it. Yes. Yeah, all of these are super valid. Yeah. Not being afraid of money. Oh, I like that one. We're going to dive deeper into that. Not being afraid. Yeah, absolutely. I'll give one more minute for anyone else to drop an answer, and we'll move on to the next one. Knowledge about how to use money to support yourself. Yeah. Okay. These are great. It's a good start. Careful prioritization of where to invest in. Yes. Yeah. Investing. I like it. Knowing how to use money in a responsible manner. Yes. Okay. So there's like some of these definitions are a little bit more broad, some of them are a little bit specific. Some of them are very emotional or feeling based. Love it. Okay. Let me present the next question. What are things your parents or your community have told you about money? What have they said to you? This could be a word, a phrase. Maybe you've overheard them talking about things that have made you think a certain way about money. I feel like I didn't phrase this question very well, but that's what I mean. Just like, what are things your parents or your community have shared with you about money that kind of stick with you? It sucks. Yeah, for sure. It sucks. Okay. I can resonate with that. Invest young. Okay. So that's just a strategic tip. Time is money. Money is a tool. Save, save, save. And it's honestly so stressful. Ooh, I resonate with that one. Yes. Oh, I love these answers. Ooh, now we're getting into the deep ones. Never ask about someone's salary. It's rude and socially unacceptable. I've definitely heard that one. We don't have much to provide you. Don't waste it. Oh, I also resonate with that one. Thank you so much, everyone, for being so vulnerable. This is great. And really take a moment, everyone, also to read everyone's responses, because this really gives you a really great perspective of kind of what your peers are experiencing and what they're being told about money as well. Give it one more minute, for just a couple more seconds. Anyone else wants to drop? Okay. How has what you've been told impacted how you relate to money? So, all of those things that you've just dropped in there about what people have told you, how has it impacted your relationship to money? Made me scared. Yeah, absolutely. Stress me out. Yeah. It makes me hyper conscious about my spending and added a burden, excuse me, and stressor to my life. It makes me feel guilty about spending it for anything. I'm scared of people judging or shunning me for how I manage it. Oh, sorry, I read that in my head. um, yeah, you haven't engaged with money. I think that's a really powerful part of that sentence. Mainly haven't engaged with money. Left it in the bank untouched as I can get interest. Okay. So there's resistance, there's fear, there's stress, there's guilt. It's great. Thank you all for sharing. I think I have one more. How would you like to feel about money in the future? So you might have more of that stress and that fear and the anxiety and the nervousness about money right now. How would you like to feel about money? Not terrified of it and not guilty about it. So kind of taking back your control, having more comfort. I want to feel a sense of security and comfort, not having to think or worry about it. To feel more stable with it. Feel safe and secure. So it sounds like everyone in this room is feeling very similar about their relationship to money right now and how they'd like to transform it. So this is great that we have a lot of self-awareness around this. Certain that I can use it as needed in a comfortable manner. Yeah, absolutely. So safety, security, comfort, not feeling like it's not there if you need it. Okay. What feels actually, I'm going to skip this one. Oh, did you guys already get you got all the questions? Oh, I guess maybe I opened them all. All right. What is your number one financial goal for 2024? Okay, I'd like to have a comfortable amount of money in my bank account. I'd like to learn to manage my money, able to pay rent in the first month according to market value. Okay. Create an emergency fund. These are a very adult of all of you. Love it. I have no idea. And that is totally okay. Absolutely. It's a big question. It's a big question, especially when you're still trying to build that relationship. To be able to have savings for university. Yeah. So I'm hearing having a bit of spending money, learning to manage it, being able to pay your rent on time, create an emergency fund, get ready for university. Yeah, be able to go into university without debt. That's always a big one. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you all for sharing. I'm going to exit the Menti. We'll go back to the presentation. But at any time, if you feel like you want to drop anything in the chat about your goals or thoughts that you're having, questions, again, don't hesitate to drop those in there. Okay. Stop the share on the Menti. Oh, I can't even get out of it. Okay, there we go. Okay. I'm going to do a new screen share. Bear with me. So I wanted to put something that I actually love. Like, this is like my favorite quote about money because at the end of the day, like, things cost money. That's life. It is. But what I love about this is that money is also a renewable resource. So I actually put the money tree on this slide because something that my parents always told me was money doesn't grow on trees. But you know what's really funny is it does because it's made of paper. But we live in such a digital world, right? Like our relationship to money is also a little skewed because a lot of us pay for things like on our phone, like we use devices, we use debit cards, credit cards, we transfer our funds online. Some of us don't even go to bank tellers anymore. We do everything with an automated machine. I don't even know like if you guys still manage, like I'm sure you maybe don't have checkbooks anymore. Like they probably don't give 18-year-olds that who are getting a bank account. They did back when I was 18, but people don't really use checks anymore, right? So that also kind of adds to that relationship and maybe a little bit more of like the scarcity of it because you're never really holding it, right? So it kind of like changes that as well. But I just wanted to remind you that like money is a renewable resource. There is so much money out there. There is so much opportunity out there. And you are growing up in a generation where there is literally new types of jobs being made every day. I know that you probably get downloads from your parents about the economy and what's happening with investments and stocks going up and down and interest. And it's a lot, but it's always fluctuating. And I think it's really important to think of it as kind of like this cyclical thing where it's like sometimes money's going to be tight, sometimes money is going to be more abundant. But what I want to do is invite you all to just plant your feet on the ground if you can, if you're seated in a chair, just plant your feet down. Or just find like a relaxed position where you can kind of ground yourself. Maybe you can hold onto the desk in front of you, or you can put your hands on your lap. And you can choose to close your eyes, or you can just kind of just like lower your gaze. And I just want you to think of three things that are related to money that you're grateful for. This could be security, shelter, having a roof over your head, having food on the table. This could be the opportunities you've been presented with. This could be experiences that you've had. This could be the education that you've been able to access or are about to access. Just think of three things. You don't have to share them. This is just for you. Once you have those three things, I now want you to acknowledge some of those negative emotions and beliefs that you associate with money that you just shared with us. So the stress, the fear, the guilt, the shame. Just acknowledge that those feelings are there. You can reflect on it a little bit about why they exist. So thinking back to maybe those generational myths or phrases that your family has told you, that you've heard in your community, that you've read online. Now I want you to imagine some of those negative beliefs and emotions as like tangible objects or like maybe just little clouds hanging over your head. They're like little rain clouds that are just kind of always there and they're just bothering you whenever you spend a dollar. Just picture them over your head or maybe in front of you. And I want you to just take a huge breath in and blow them away. And I know it feels silly, but I just wanted us to take a moment to be mindful about these thoughts because, again, it's a cycle. You're going to have these feelings. Money is sometimes going to stress you out, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's going to be envy and shame and guilt. Sometimes there's going to be abundance and gratitude and excitement and honor, like being proud of yourself for the work, what you've done and how far you've come and what you've accomplished. And I just want you to remember that there's a balance in this, right? There's the highs and there's the lows. And the best way to work through all of this, so that when you have the good days, you keep having them. And when you have the low days, you know how to get out of those kind of financial challenges by learning practical tools around budgeting and how to find resources to support you. So now that we've done a little bit of the mindfulness, I hope that like kind of relieves a little bit of the stress of it. But now we're going to dive into more of the literal literacy side of it. So first, we're going to clarify some of the more kind of common financial terms to make sure that you actually feel comfortable and confident in having these conversations, whether it's with your friends or your parents or your community, or, being able to go into a bank and feel confident and having a conversation with a teller and asking to open, a savings account or start investments, whatever you want to do. Then we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting and some tools or supports that you can kind of have in your toolkit. And then we're going to go through an actual budget sample using the budget template that we use here at CanGap to give gappers. This is an awesome template. If you don't have it already, I'm so excited to introduce you to it because it really helps you make smart decisions around financially planning for different experiences and opportunities you want to bring into your life. So first, I feel like we're familiar with these ones. Yeah. Budget, income, expenses, savings. Anyone who want to take a crack at just defining one of these in the chat? Just a few words or a sentence, and then we'll dive into some more challenging ones. What is a budget? What is income? What is expenses? What is savings? Expenses are what you spend your money on. Yep. Budget, your plan for how you use your money. Exactly. Awesome. So I think we've got like a good understanding of these more, entry level terms, right? So we've got budget. So that's exactly what it is, Emma. Your plan for how you use your money. A plan that outlines your expected income and your expenses over a specific period of time so you can manage your money. And then obviously your income is the money you earn. So that can be wages, salaries, it could be your allowance that you get from your family or any other sources of money that come in. But this is also where it gets tricky because you can start considering maybe like a loan, something that comes in as income, but that's where it gets tricky. So you want to be careful. We'll talk about that in a second. Expenses, the money you spend on various items or services. So that could be rent or groceries or entertainment. So like going to the movies, going shopping, getting your nails done, all those things. Those would be your expenses. And then savings, that would be the money you set aside for future use or emergencies, usually kept in a savings account or other safe investment. Sorry, Sebastian just wrote, budget is the money you have available to spend. Income is the money you make. Investment is putting money in for money out. I love it. And expenses is the money you spend. That's amazing. That's like a perfect one sentence to like gather it all. Thank you for that. I love that. If anyone wants to copy and paste that, that's great. Okay, so let's talk about some of the more complex terms. Can anyone define any of these? So up on the screen, I have debt, interest, investment, assets, liabilities, and credit score. We don't have to put these all in the chat, just like whatever you know, and you have like a quick definition, feel free to drop it. Sebastian says debt is owed money. Yes, it is money that you owe. Absolutely. So that would be, so let me actually bring up the definition for that right away. So, oh no, I did it all at once. Darn it. We'll come back to it. Anyone else want to share another one or two before I give more of a clear definition for all of these? Interest is an extra percentage. Yes, that's one half of it. Assets are things such as houses or cars. Yep. So those are the things that you own. Yep. Yep. Investment. Yeah. You mentioned, what did you put for investment? I want to read it. Investment is putting money in for money out. And then in brackets, gambling. Yes. That is technically how you could also define it, gambling. Anyone else want to give a crack at one of these? Credit score keeps track of your reliability with your credit card paying it back. Yeah, that's a good way to define it as well. Awesome. Thanks, Naomi. Okay, so diving into these a little bit more with more detail. So debt. So that is the money owed to either a person, an organization, or an entity. So it's often accrued through loans or credit card usage. So if, for example, let's say tomorrow you went and you bought a car, and that car was $5,000, and you used maybe a loan or a line of credit to buy that car, but you don't have that $5,000. Let's say you have $500 in your account. So, and obviously that $500 you're probably going to want to use for other things in your life, like groceries and living. So that $5,000 that's sitting there, that is your debt until it is paid off. Now, interest is actually the cost of borrowing money. So, or the return, it's also the return earned on invested funds. So, for example, if you bought a car, so let's say you bought it for $1,000, just to make it easy for math, bought it for $1,000 and the interest was 10%. So for every month, let's say that it was like a monthly 10% interest. For every month you didn't pay that $1,000, you'd be having to pay an extra $100. And this is why when you have debt and the interest rate is higher, you want to make sure that you're being more intentional about paying off debt that has higher interest, because the more that interest compounds, the more money you end up owing. So that is the cost of borrowing money. Whereas sometimes you can get like a high interest savings account. Maybe your parents have started one of those for you, or a tax-free savings account, which doesn't really, it's a little bit different. But a high interest savings account would be like for every dollar that you put in, you're getting like a percentage back of that every month. So interest has like a positive and a negative. It's always money like accruing over time, but it can be a cost of borrowing, or it can be a return. Now, investment. So Sebastian eloquently put this as gambling. I think that's actually a really easy way to explain it. So allocating money into assets or ventures within the expectation of generating income or increasing in value over time. So something that you might find the most relatable in investments is maybe like an RSP. So like your parents probably started you an education fund, maybe. And that not only accrues interest, but also the government gives you a certain portion of money every year. So it's like, you're constantly kind of generating income over that investment over time. But some other ways you might have seen investments could be like crypto, a very volatile market. Of course, that means volatile in terms that like the numbers are always up and down. So it's a little bit more risky. But that would be where maybe, you can see things like you put in $1,000 and then the next day you've got $2,000. But sometimes you put in that $1,000 and the next day you have $200, because it's just, that's kind of the risk of investing. So that's maybe where the gambling aspect comes into play. And then assets. Crypto is a Ponzi scheme. Okay. Another topic for another day. Assets. Sebastian will totally have this chat though, for sure. Assets, like Leah said, are things of value that you own. So this can be like cash you have in the bank. It could be properties you own. It could be stocks you have or other investments. So like if you have a car, that is also an asset as well. Unless it's falling apart, then it's a liability. So liabilities are financial obligations or debts that you owe. So this could be loans that are laying around. It could be mortgages if you buy a house. It could be unpaid bills. And the reason that this is very risky is because, let's say, for example, you don't pay your phone bill for 6 months. By not paying that, yes, I can definitely send these slides out. Absolutely. And there's going to be a recording of this as well. By not paying your phone bill over like 6 months, you might not accrue interest in terms of what you owe, but by not paying that, it actually impacts the next thing on this slide, which is your credit score. So let's say over 6 months, you don't pay your phone bill, and maybe your phone bill is $100 a month. That's $600 over 6 months that you didn't pay. And for Bell Canada or Rogers or TELUS, they're going to want that money. So if they're unable to get you to pay it, so maybe you're ignoring their emails, you're ignoring their calls, and you're just like, you know what, I'll deal with this $600 later. They can go through a third-party organization to collect this money from you. And unfortunately, if you don't pay it over a certain amount of time, it impacts your credit score. So let's say, for example, down the line, you were like, you know what, I need a line of credit for my post-secondary education. Maybe you're like 3 years in and you're like, I'm going to take a $10,000 line of credit to help me with paying rent, getting groceries, being able to do things, getting my books. $10,000 doesn't go very far when you're in university, because you're already paying like $3,000 in tuition fees, right? So getting a line of credit for 10 grand isn't even that much in terms of that amount of time in school. But by not paying those phone bills, you actually impact your credit score, so that the bank might be like, sorry, we can't give you this line of credit because you haven't paid these phone bills. So you want to make sure that you're always on top of your finances and the things and all your bills. That also goes with, like, for example, if you get a credit card and you don't make the minimum payment. So even if you put like $1,000 on your credit card, you don't have to pay that $1,000 back right away, but you are accruing interest in that process, right? But another option is, like, you can pay a minimum payment. So let's say every month your credit card minimum payment is $30. So every month you could pay $30 on that $1,000 until it's paid off. But you're not really paying it off fully because you have to pay the interest every month. And paying those every month is good for your credit score. Like, even if you have a little bit of debt, you can still be able to access other things with credit. But let's say you miss a credit card payment for 1 month because you're like, you know what, I don't have that $30 to pay that bill. That impacts your credit score. And there's only really real way to, like, build credit, though, is to kind of do all of these things. So in order to be able to access more money on credit, you have to actually be spending on credit. So one of the best ways I always encourage young people to start that journey is getting, like, a low interest credit card. So, like, for example, I bank with RBC. So RBC has, like, a low interest credit card. I think it's like 7% interest. So it's very, very low. And you can talk to your parents about that. Like, maybe you have shared banking with them. If you're 18, obviously you're very much responsible for your own finances. You can go into the bank and ask for one. But it's always good to have these conversations with your family, especially if you live at home, because they can also make sure that you're making the right decisions as well. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to your family about finances, feel free to send me an email and we can make sure that we connect you with someone. One of our sponsors is actually RBC Future Launch. We might be able to connect you with a mentor to support you in that process. So these are just some of the kind of larger terms that you want to know. I didn't read the formal credit score definition, but it's a numerical representation of an individual's credit worthiness. So that's based on your credit history, and that's used by lenders to assess the risk of lending you money or lending you more money. Okay, so let's dive into the building a budget side. And remember, if you have questions, I'll acknowledge them at the end. I'll give you like a good 5 to 10 minutes for questions, but I'll kind of breeze through this budget part so that you feel confident in stepping away from today's call and getting started on your 2024 budget. Woohoo! So building a budget. So why budget? Why budget? That's a great question. Why should you budget? You could easily just spend money and spend and pay bills. But why is it important to budget? No answer. All right. Well, thank you. It allows you to pay for big purchases. Oh, I like that. Yes, absolutely. Um, it can help you reach your money goals. Yes. Yes, money goals. Hashtag money goals. Yeah. A budget allows you to really take in a wide angle view of what is coming in and what is going out, and specifically what needs to go out. So yeah, Naomi, to keep from overspending. Exactly. Because if you only have, let's say, $1,500 coming in every month, but suddenly you've got $2,000 going out the door in expenses every month, there's a $500 deficit there. And that means there's a negative, which means that there's $500 that you don't have that you need to spend. Keeps you from going too far into debt and spend with purpose. Yes. Great, Sebastian. Thank you. Yeah. So what do you need to consider when building a budget? Well, you kind of need to consider all the things we just talked about, right? We need to talk about we need to consider our income. So how are we making money? Where is that money coming from? When does it come in? That's also a big, like, timing, because you have to think about if, for example, you need to pay your phone bill on the 15th of every month, but you get paid on the 16th. How do you make sure that you're budgeting in that previous month to ensure that you are meeting that bill on time so that you don't get those late fees? what makes you nervous about budgeting? That's a question I'd really like for all of you to answer. What makes you nervous about starting the budgeting process? I know for me, it was always like a fear of just seeing how it worked, how it all came together, and having like a dollar amount that you're looking at, like, yeah, messing up. That's great. I love that. Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable in that. Um, Always worried about like, oh my gosh, is it going to balance? Is my budget going to balance? What if I'm in a negative? What if I'm not making enough? Do I need to be working harder? There was always so many questions, and it always kind of scared me about budgeting young. So yeah, messing up is a big one. I think like the fear around it is huge. Anybody else want to share? What makes you nervous? I'll leave that open. I don't want to run over time, so I'll just feel free to keep sharing. Feeling overwhelmed or scared. Yeah, thanks, Celeste. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Well, let's look at the positive part first. So funding your budget. What are the opportunities? What's available? So obviously, we have a few options here. We have working a job. Some of you might still get an allowance from your parents if you live at home. Scholarships, bursaries, and grants. I know you might be like, Jasmine, that sounds like a post-secondary thing, but there are scholarships also available for a lot of gap year students. So for example, cangap.com/scholarships. I will drop that in the chat. We offer 2 scholarships every year to gap year students and soon to be gap year alum. School Finder is a great resource for finding different funding opportunities for as a student. Oh goodness, I forgot to pull this one up. One second, I have a really great resource for you. There it is. RBC Future Launch. I feel like I'm name dropping here, but they're such a valued partner. They actually give away $1,500 on a rolling basis to youth between 15 and 29. I just dropped that link there because they actually review applications on a rolling basis. So if you're working on something that you could use $1,500 for right now, highly recommend applying for that. And wink, wink, we get a lot of gappers getting that grant or that scholarship. Please do apply if you could use $1,500. But I think, sometimes we forget that there is actually so much money out there, really more than you think, especially for students. So make sure that you're just doing the proper research to see what is available for you, whether you're on a gap year or you're in post-secondary or you're considering what's available for you as you go into post-secondary. I know that a lot of applications were due this month and are going to be continuing to be due next month for the fall 2024 school year. Look into the schools that you are looking at. Like, what do they have available for you as entry scholarships? And then, of course, School Finder is great to see kind of what's available regionally as well. And then there's credit options. So, I'm sure maybe a few of you started thinking about, well, are you going to get a student loan to go to post-secondary? Maybe that's through the government. So, I took a student loan to go to college from OSAP, Ontario Student. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what it stands for. If someone knows what it stands for, I don't remember. Maybe it's not even called OSAP anymore. But that was like a specific lending, like a low interest student loan lending platform. You can get a loan through the bank. You can use credit cards. You can use a line of credit, which is similar to a loan, but the idea of a line of credit is you only owe what you use on it, whereas a loan is like they give you a lump sum of money. So let's say you need $10,000. A loan, they would give you $10,000 and then you're paying interest on that every month and having to pay it back on a monthly basis. Whereas a line of credit is like kind of like a stagnant amount of money that's available to you, but you only have to pay what you use. So you might get like a line of credit that's $3,000. And maybe you use that for the whole school year, but maybe 1 month you use $500 of it and then you pay it back right away. Or maybe maybe like 3 months later, you use all of it and then you just like pay that back slowly over time. But the idea is that it's more just like available to you and you're just paying it back as you use it. Whereas a loan is like they give the money to you and then you have to make structured payments every month. Let me know if you have any questions about the difference in those two. And I recommend that, again, talking to your bank, talking to your parents, if you are looking to go a credit option as you start thinking about some of the bigger experiences in your gap year or post-secondary. Now, expenses and minimizing expenses. So, because expenses can look very different for everybody, and we're going to look at a sample budget in a second. But what is really, really important here in considering building a budget is you really need to get clear on your goals. So, goal setting and prioritizing where you're spending your money, because again, everyone's lifestyle is very different. So reviewing where you spend your money and learning where to allocate, the right amount is really crucial because again, like put Uber Eats in exclamation marks there under reviewing where you spend, because sometimes you don't even realize like, oh my gosh, I spent $500 this month on Uber Eats when you could have spent $200 if you had bought groceries and just were more intentional. And that happens a lot when you're a student as well. So this is kind of like a good hint as you prepare for post-secondary, because it's so easy to get caught in that loop when you can be more intentional. If you prioritize and you goal set where you want that money to go. So maybe you need to consider transportation. Maybe you have a car. Maybe you need to get a bus pass. And when you have a car, you need to think about maybe you're making car payments. Maybe you're paying for gas as well and insurance. So there's lots of things you have to consider just in that process. Maybe even on your gap year, maybe you're doing like a one-off 6-week course or program. Maybe it's online, maybe it's in person. Maybe you have to consider getting there and back or packing a lunch to be on site at the program. And then of course, entertainment, considering like, well, what makes sense for you on a monthly basis. Like I know when I was in college and I didn't have as much money to spend, a lot of my social evenings with my friends were at someone's house and we would kind of do like a potluck and everyone would bring some food so that we were able to minimize expenses. We were able to still come together and have our social time and not worry so much about the budgeting aspect. And then of course, pooling expenses with roommates and friends. There's always so much opportunity. If you don't live at home and maybe you live with roommates or you're going to be living with roommates when you go to post-secondary, thinking about how can you pool expenses around Wi-Fi or like Netflix and streaming services, groceries, carpooling. You always want to consider some of these things to help you minimize your budget, because even if it's just like $12 a month, that adds up. That adds up quickly. If it's $10 a month, that's $1,200 a year. Sorry, no, that's not. I'm really bad at math. That's $120 a year. All right, let's move on before it gets too late and Jasmine loses all her math skills. Okay, let's look at a quick budget. So in this process, I'm also going to show you how to use our budget template. And then in an email that you'll get from me tomorrow, you will get, oh, I think I need to stop the screen share. I don't know where this tab is. You will get access to the template so you can start using it as well. Here it is. Okay. So this is our handy dandy gap year budgeting tool. So the first page actually explains how to use it. So just in case you forget or you don't want to watch this whole recording, you have that option later. So there's a few sheets here. So first I'm going to start at the income and expenses. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and just like made up this fake gapper, let's call them Sam, their gap year budget. And I've based it over the next 6 months. So Sam is currently working a part-time job in a grocery store and they're making $15 an hour and they're working 60 hours per month. And maybe they've decided that they're only going to work this job for like 6 months. So we've just gone ahead and given them what that is going to look like over those 6 months. That's going to be a total of $5,400. This is me considering this money before tax, because obviously taxes come off your paycheck as well. So you have to be considerate of that and how that impacts your budget. So make sure you're just like reading your pay stub and getting that information from your employer if you're currently working. And because Sam has some kind of bigger plans for their gap year, they've also taken on some side jobs to help them earn a little bit more income. So they're going to be tutoring math because they're way better at math than I am. And they're making a little bit more money there. They're making $20 an hour, but they're only working 20 hours a month. They only have a few clients, let's say. And they only have 4 months of that because let's say that's just based on the school year calendar. They're only going to be working with them up till April. And then this month, they also took on a few extra babysitting gigs for January, let's say. So for the month of January, they're going to be working 8 hours of babysitting and they're going to make an extra $160. Now, Sam has some fixed expenses. So these are going to be expenses that are kind of the same every month. So those would be things like your cell phone. So over the next 6 months, Sam is going to have to pay for hers cell phone bill. So that's going to be a total of $600 for the next 6 months. They also have a car. Sam is super lucky, and their parents gave them their secondhand car, or someone gave them a car. Maybe they paid for it in high school. But they do have to pay insurance for that car. And I feel like this is like a very unrealistic insurance number for someone your age. I think it's more closer to $200. Actually, let's make it more realistic, because why not? So they're going to be paying $200 in insurance every month for the next 6 months. So that's a pretty pricey addition there. So that's there's a crack on my computer, so I can't see it. That's $1,200. And then let's say for the entertainment budget, they're going to give themselves $300 roughly a month. They're a social person. They like to go out. They like to go to the movies, let's say. So they give themselves $300 a month for the next 6 months. That's $1,800. And they've decided that for every paycheck, they're going to put $50 aside into their savings account. So they're going to save $300 over the next 6 months. And I just put like an extra like one-off expense here. So obviously a savings would not be an expense. This would be like technically a little bit of a little investment. Let's say maybe there's some interest on that account or something. And then they have like a one-off fee. So it's just associated with 1 month. So you'll see that this column is based on months. So if it's just a one-off thing that you need to put money aside for, you can put it in there. So this is for their post-secondary application. So let's say in January, they're signing off a bunch of post-secondary applications for fall 2024, and it's $250. So up here, so this is an automated Excel sheet. So it's going to take all those numbers and it's going to tell us what we have available to us. So what we know for the next 6 months is that Sam has $7,160 available to them in income. So that's money that is coming in. And based on the expenses that we've laid out, they have $4,150 that is going to go out. So that means the funds available for their gap year experiences is $3,010. Okay. So that's what they have left. So this is where this spreadsheet gets really fun. So Sam has a few different ideas of what they want to do on their gap year. So 2 of the ideas that they have is, 1 is a trip to Costa Rica, and 2 is to attend a music festival. Ooh, fancy. This could also be like, maybe you want to take classes, you want to take guitar classes, maybe you want to do an online UX design course. Maybe you want to take a weekend and go sightseeing in Montreal. All of those things apply. So you can use one of these experience tabs to help you see what experience is going to make sense for your budget. So let's take a look. So Sam's Costa Rica trip. So what they've laid out is that it's going to cost them about $1,500 in flights. They're doing a program. Let's say they're doing maybe like a wildlife program, and that's going to be $1,000. And then on ground, they might have to take some buses, some taxis. Maybe there's like a quick domestic flight that they need to take within the country, and that's going to cost them about $500. And then, of course, while they're there, they need to make sure that they're going to stay healthy if anything happens. You always want to make sure that you have insurance. So their travel insurance is going to cost them about $150 for, let's say, this like 2-week experience. Let's say they have to spend extra money on their food, so they've allocated $850, and they've given themselves like $1,000 in spending money for souvenirs and stuff. So the total cost of this experience is $5,000. Okay. Now let's look at experience 2. So experience 2 is a music festival. So let's say this music festival is in France. So they're going to be flying to France. So it's quite expensive. So it's $2,500. I feel like it's not that expensive to fly to France, but for this example, that's how much it is. It's going to cost them $2,500 in a return flight. The fee for the festival is $900. They have to pay for their accommodation. And obviously maybe it's like the summer season, it's peak season, it's a festival, accommodation is more expensive. So it's $1,200 for the time they're there. And then they're obviously going to have to pay for food. Oh yeah, they're going to need insurance as well. So let's put that $150 in there. And you can also use these columns here. So let's say if there's a due date associated with making these purchases, you can allocate it here as well, so that you just have it kind of logged. So up here, we know that this experience is going to cost them $5,250. So you can duplicate these experiences. All I have to do is press duplicate and make like a second template if you need, or you can use like the blank ones, just depending on how many experiences you want to like see how much they're going to cost. And what I love about this spreadsheet is now we're going to go to the decision sheet here. So this decision sheet helps us understand what is feasible in terms of the different experiences they want to do. So let's say they actually want to go to, oh, they want to go to Costa Rica and they want to go to the music festival. Let's say that. Okay. But we know that Sam is making only $7,160 in the next 6 months. We know that she has $4,150 in expenses, and that they only have $3,000 available in gap experiences. So they need $10,000, over $10,000 to do both of those experiences. So not totally feasible, right? So let's say they're just going to do the trip to Costa Rica. So let's take the music festival out of this decision. We've removed it from the decision. And now we know that they need $5,000 for this experience. And because they only have $3,010 available, that they are out $1,990. Okay, so that's okay. That's a manageable number. What could that mean? Maybe Sam goes back to the drawing board and is like, okay, maybe I can ask for more hours at my part-time job. Anybody else want to make any suggestions? What could Sam do to now help balance this budget in the income and also in their expenses? What could they do looking at these numbers? What would you do? What would you do so that you can kind of help alleviate that almost $2,000 gap or $1,600 gap? I can give you a strong hint. Celeste says, trying to cut my expenses as much as I could. Yes, absolutely. So maybe we are cutting Sam's entertainment budget. Maybe instead of going to the movies, 4 times a month, maybe we go a little less. So maybe we take this down to maybe like $100 a month. Yeah. So maybe we decide, I don't know, this seems extreme, but maybe like they don't take their car everywhere for the next, I didn't even put a gas thing in here, but maybe they they drive less and take the bus. So what are some ideas of like how you cut it? Maybe they up their hours. Let's say they're able to secure 80 hours a month. So now they have $6,000 to spend. And if we go back to the decision sheet, we can see that now by putting in more money or putting more hours in at work, which maybe it's a little bit tiring, but they're able to access that opportunity. And by lowering their expenses and entertainment, they have the opportunity to now take that experience and they have even some money left over, which is great. So that's just a quick overview of how this budget works and how you can kind of play around with your budget. I know it's very unique and different for everybody. But Sebastian, that's a great recommendation as well. Lower quality amenities during the trip. Absolutely. Maybe instead of staying at hotels, they stay at hostels. Maybe instead of going out to eat every night, they cook a few meals and like use a community kitchen. And those are actually like really valuable experiences. Those actually teach you a lot about how you can travel and how you can save money, and also skills that you can take into just being a young adult, like cooking and building community. So there's lots and lots of options there. Okay. So I don't want us to go over time. So I'm gonna stop us there and just thank you all for contributing and sharing and taking a moment to kind of go through that budget with me. And I'm curious, does anybody have any overall like arching questions around budgeting, financial literacy, preparing for post-secondary? Maybe you're working on saving for something specific on your gap year and you're a little bit concerned about how to budget for it. And of course, if you don't feel comfortable talking about it right now on this chat, you're always welcome to email me after, but I am an open book for the next 2 minutes. Tell me, what are your questions? Or maybe you're like, Jasmine, this is so clear. I am totally financially literate. But I also want to mention again, like this is a lifelong journey. It's your relationship with money is sometimes going to feel really stressful. Sometimes it's going to feel really great, like I said, and just learning to leverage budgeting and understanding how to play with numbers, how to bring in more income or reduce expenses is going to continuously help you work towards some of those financial goals, and also making sure that you're goal setting and prioritizing. And I think I've also included our goal setting worksheet in my follow-up email so that you have that as well to support you. Any questions, concerns? Okay, I have a question here. I'm a bit confused about how student government loans work, like OSAP. Does it pay for your semester all at once? Do you get weekly payments? Because I always hear my peers say they get their OSAP money. Yes, great question. OSAP does work like that. Yes. So usually they give you it in installments based on the semester. And sometimes OSAP, depending on your financial situation, like for example, I grew up in a home with a single mother, income was a little bit less. So I had access to kind of like additional bursaries. So sometimes you'd be available for that as well. So there's like pieces that they might send you as like spending money almost that you don't have to pay back, but then you do get like your semester tuition fees in increments that align with when it's due in the school year. So yeah, that comes through. Oh, Naomi says, thank you for the presentation. You're so welcome. Oh, I think Naomi left. They're probably tired. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Celeste. Yeah, and feel free to connect with me one on one if you have questions or if you'd like a little just like support with where you're at because yeah, I resonate. Um, Yeah, great question. Yeah, because obviously with a lender like OSAP for like a student loan specific service, they're going to give you an agreement so you understand how it works throughout your school year. And obviously it's going to work a little bit different to a bank, so it's going to be a schedule that makes sense to the school calendar. But yeah, if you're looking into OSAP or looking into a government student loan versus a bank, make sure you do like take the time, like no, I'm just saying, just like make sure that you take the time to see like what are the interest rates, what does it make sense over time, like over, especially if you're studying for 4+ years, to make sure that you're making the best financial decision for you. And it's always good to just like go in and talk to a teller or your banker or whoever you have that maybe your family uses someone you can go to have these conversations so that you feel comfortable making decisions. Does anybody have any other questions before I let us go? I don't want to keep you all too late on a Wednesday night. Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for joining. All right, I'll leave us there then. Again, feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions. I will make sure that you all get access to this recording as well. And I'm just really, really grateful that all of you felt so open to share and be vulnerable in this space. So thank you. And I hope you do leave here feeling more comfortable and confident just a little bit and having those conversations and thinking about what you want your relationship to money to look like and how to start preparing for the new year. So if you have questions about how to use the template as well, feel free to reply to the email I send you tomorrow morning and just let me know. All right. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. And we'll chat soon. Bye, friends.